The first team due to get away very shortly is the Colombian team. Great to see a Colombian team back in, a Colombian national team back in Grand Tour action. And these riders are, what's the final? They're in the final position on general classification. So the Colombia team getting set to get going very shortly. As I said, I've got alongside me the great Sean Kelly, ready to survey the activity this afternoon. And it's great weather for the riders, and that'll be some relief, because this is a very technical test, Sean.
Yes, it's a big relief. Dry conditions is very good, because when you look at the route here, very technical. The dry conditions will be really welcome by everybody within the teams, and it's a difficult one because there's quite a few hills here which drag on a bit, and when you leave the start area it drags up for almost close to 3 kilometres, and then there's a few more kick-ups as we go on, kilometre and a half here and there. So it's not an easy time trial by any means, a team time trial, and of course the technical part as well. If you have a dead straight like down a motorway and back, that makes it very easy for a team to ride. But here we did hear from some of the managers there, you know, with 9 riders out there, it's going to be tackling. You have to be careful in the beginning that you don't lose too many riders too early, and to make the calculation that you use them sufficiently, and you know, go on to the finish with that number you need. 5 riders to finish, of course, over the line. You have to have 5 to get the time for the team, and that's an important one as well. So it's there's a lot of tactics. It just isn't like going out and just riding with 9 men as fast as you can. There's a lot of tactics attached to it, and you have to walk depending on the route.
And the Colombian team are underway for their first opportunity to show their skills in team time trialing. Of course, they'll be expected to really shine in the mountains, and this is an early foray for this squad, which of course is run and based out of Italy. It's an all-Colombian lineup, and one of 2 teams indeed that have single nation lineups. And all the riders managed to finish yesterday, which was great relief. There were so many crashes. I think there was about 12 different crashes on the day, but all the riders managed to get to the finish and will be taken to the start today. I can tell you that Kobo, the Movistar team, their GC rider, crashed during the exploratory runs on this course a little while ago. No harm done, but that just shows you, I think, that well, they're playing catch-up in terms of learning how to ride this course. And why, Sean, is it, I mean, they don't normally recce all the road stages, but a team time trial course does need to be recce'd. It does need as much practice as you can possibly get. This island of Ischia hasn't really offered them that opportunity. They haven't been able to ride the course because it's, well, you know, it's 30 kilometres out into the bay, and they haven't been able to get on the roads in the right conditions. So they've only really had this morning. Why is it so much more important for a team time trial? Well,
it's very important that you know the corners, because if you're leading your team into a corner, you have to have it registered in your mind how tight the corner is, because if you arrive in too fast and it's a little bit too tight and you start braking very heavily, you create panic behind you, and the other riders, you know, risk running into you. They have to brake very suddenly as well, and you can cause a lot of problems, and you break up the line of riders as well. So, you know, everybody in the team in the earlier part, you need to have it registered in your mind what the corners are like as you come into them, and you're going at a very fast rate, because some of them here on the downhill you can be doing 65 kilometers per hour, so you have to know exactly at what rate you can get around that corner. So, you know, in team time trialing, you're always worried about, you know, making a mistake and taking your other teammates out. And if you're in a team who has somebody for the general classification, well, that would be a disaster if you do that. It would be a really nightmare for the team, and you would, you know, be really down because of that for many days to come. So it's very important that you get to, you know the route. Here today, as we said, you know, they've been out on the route, so a good time to get the route registered in your mind, because, you know, it's really recent. They have been doing the last number of hours, and once you can get around at least once, I think you should be able to remember the most dangerous sections, the most dangerous corners. They're the ones you have to be careful, and if you've got them in your mind, you knock your speed off a little bit. And of course, teams differ here as well. The teams who haven't anybody for the general classification, who are a good team time trial team, they can really push on and take a lot of risk, where the guys with the general classification, you have to go, you know, close to your 100%, but still in the technical areas you have to take a little bit careful not to, you know, have a crash and take your potential race winner or a potential podium finisher in this race out of the race in a crash here today.
it's a bit of an old cliche, but this it's going to be very difficult to win the Giro. You're certainly not going to win the Giro d'Italia in this stage, but you could lose it. So it's about caution. And I mean, losing sort of 10-15 seconds today is of limited importance, you'd say, over the balance of the 3 weeks.
Well, for some teams, you know, it's going to be all about limiting your losses, and the big teams with the potential winners here, they will be making the calculation. We can't lose, you know, time to the other big favourites, which are in those teams, and that's where they will try and make the calculation on. But still, you know, when you look at the strong teams, if you look at Sky, for example, that they have a super strong team here, they will put up a good time. But will they really, you know, take all the risks and really go for the win, or will they just go out there and try and, you know, put in a very good time and be looking at the other riders, like in Nibali's time, for example? They'll be calculating against his team what they will be able to do. That could be also the tactic here today. So, you know, there's a few different tactics depending on the teams, what their targets is in this race later on.
Okay, 2 teams out on course now. We saw AG Tour La Mondiale leaving the start ramp. They finished 21st out of 22 teams in the equivalent test last year. Stage 4 of the 2012 Giro d'Italia was a 33.3 kilometre team time trial in Verona, and it was won on that occasion by the Garmin squad of the ultimate race winner, Ryder Hagedal. They had a 5-second advantage at the conclusion of that 33 kilometre stage of just 5 seconds, so very little to choose between the teams on that occasion. Sky, for what it's worth, finished 9th on that occasion, 30 seconds down. So, I mean, that would certainly... Bradley Wiggins wouldn't be delighted to lose 30 seconds to the likes of Ryder Hagedal. Certainly if Nibali managed to pull that sort of time out on Bradley Wiggins, it would be a concern.
Yes, I think you know, to look at the other general classification, and that's what they will be really looking at, and they don't want to lose anything on those guys. If anything, they want to take a number of seconds, and that's, you know, will be the calculation today for the teams that are really have the big favours for the overall victory here.
Okay, next up, the Blanco squad. Robert Hessink is a leading overall contender. Many people believe that this could be the race where he really emerges as a proper Grand Tour contender. Much has been expected of him. His team obviously hasn't finished terribly well from yesterday's stage. Cautiously in the bunch for the most part, but Hessink is certainly right there overall. So and there's very little difference between well, there's no difference in conditions out on the course, so it's not likely to make a big difference between, you know, starting at the beginning and starting at the end. So the Blanco Pro Cycling team make it 3 teams out on course, 17.4 kilometres for all the teams. Welcome back to stage 2 of Giro d'Italia 2013. The Bardiani Valvole CSF Inox team getting prepared to launch themselves off the start ramp and head out onto this course. Of course, their sprinter Sasha Modolo not quite able to deliver yesterday. It was a confusing end to the stage with that little crash that happened just inside the 3 kilometre mark, at 2 kilometres out. And that split things up and played very much into the hands of Orica Greenedge. And of course Mark Cavendish of Amiga Pharma Quickstep. Not exactly the perfect sprint situation from his point of view, but he did come up with the win, and he is wearing Maglia Rosa today. Just to take you through the jersey wearers today, of course the under 25, the youth classification is being led by the man who finished 2nd yesterday, Elliot Viviani, and he'll be in white, a white skin suit later on. Points leader is Mark Cavendish, and 2nd is Viviani. So the person that's 3rd in the classification, Nasser Bouhani, will be wearing the red points jersey later on with the François de Jeux team. And the King of the Mountains classification has been split in favour of Giovanni Visconti of the Movie Star squad. So he'll be wearing the blue jersey of King of the Mountains leader, as the AG Tour La Mondiale squad wind their way around this course. There's 4 ramps on this 17.4 kilometres, and the first ramp is pretty much right from the get-go, about 5% average for a couple of kilometres, so it's certainly a tester to get them going. and a little downhill, and then back up another shorter ramp. Then there's a period of flat before they head towards the back end of the course. And the last 3 kilometers are actually downhill with a little 9% section as well. Plenty of twists and turns to keep them interested and excited and paying attention. And the Colombian squad, already you can see there's little difficulties for one or two of those riders, not quite able to match the power of their riders up front, and really struggling to hold the wheel there. And if you let that wheel go, even sort of 2 or 3 bike lengths at this sort of speed, you mightn't get it back. Worth remembering that it's the 5th rider over the line that is the counting time for the team. So each team has 9 riders. So if they 5th rider over the line, so they need to get 5 to the line basically, and the other 4 riders, well, if they get dropped, well, that's their tough, and their time they'll lose that time accordingly. Argos Shimano now getting set to head away. Such a disappointing stage for them yesterday, Sean. John Degenkolb missing the split there with the crash with a couple of kilometres to go.
Yes, it was a disappointing one for him, and of course we see that group coming to the finish, a very small group that was just the number of riders ahead of the crash, and Degenkolb was, you know, very much in there, as there were a lot of other sprinters as well, but the crash was very close to the front end of the peloton, and Degenkolb was one of the ones who missed out big time. The final run, of course, you know, a very big road, so there was the opportunity for guys to move up, even if you were a little bit back in 15th or 20th position, but the crash finished all that hope.
Yeah, if anything, it probably did Mark Cavendish a favour, although we should probably talk a little bit about Mark Cavendish's situation. It really was confusing, and you spotted that Gert Steegmans had a problem with his bike, and it did transpire afterwards that the bike went from the big ring down onto the little chain ring, which is a very unusual situation. He actually said that he was asking to go from the 12 sprocket to the 11, and for some reason, unbeknownst to him or anyone else belonging to him, the bike actually flicked back down onto the small ring.
Yes, and of course, you know, Steegmans, those big guys, they have so much power, you know, when they're going at 60 kilometers per hour, and you know, they want to go from the 12 sprocket to the 11 sprocket, make that change. When they put on the power, you know, the bike, there's so much movement, and the chain can come off. And I think we did hear Mark Cavendish talk, and he said a mechanical problem. They seem to have had it a number of times during the year, but you know, these big guys, they have so much power, they really test the material to the limits, and it's in those moments when you're in a big sprint, and when these guys go for it, like, you know, the power they put into the bike there, it's unbelievable, and that's where the real testing for the product is. And unfortunately, you know, for Steegmans, he did have that problem yesterday, and it was a difficult one for Mark Cavendish, because we could see he looked around Steegmans, and there was two bike lengths, 3 bike lengths of a gap, and he had to close that gap down. But you know, the moment he took up his sprint once again, you know, he proves that he's the fastest. And if he had a lead out yesterday of 2 or 3 men in the final kilometre, and they could take him that 200 metres before the line, well, then it would have been 2 or 3 bike lengths of a win for Mark Cavendish.
Yeah, the funny thing is they actually won. You know, but afterwards it was almost as if, oh, everything went wrong and it was a disaster, but they actually won, and it was a much needed win for that team. Again, it was his 8th win of the season. There's been some dispute as well about how many race wins. There's a young man who's enjoying the sunshine, a little paddle. Perfect. And these riders of Saxo Bank, Tinkoff Bank, would also perhaps like to cool off in the bay right now. They'd like to be on the beach, but they've got a little bit of serious work to do. And we just, oh yeah, quick reminder, at DQ Sport is the Twitter handle, so please do send your comments and questions into that handle, at DQ Sport. We've got loads of questions. One question is, they seem to go off at quite short intervals. It's actually 3 minutes between teams, and if they catch each other, well, the team that's being caught has to get out of the way. It's as simple as that. They're not allowed to sit on. There's no question of drafting. It's difficult to judge that, because you do have to drop back one. Some people say it's 10 bike lengths, other people say it's 7 bike lengths, 8 bike lengths. Certainly it has to be a judgment that's made by the front rider of the team that's caught. It's unlikely that's going to happen though, 17.4 kilometres, unless of course one of the teams has some sort of disastrous mechanical or some sort of accident mishap. It's a decent gap between them.
We can see Tinkoff rolling off, Team Saxo Tinkoff. Benatti was the man who rolled off the ramp, and of course, you know, that is something as well, is all in the briefing before you go out for the team time trial with the team directors. They say, well, you're the man who's going to lead out of the starting ramp. We could see Benatti, of course, a rider with experience is important to do that, because if you put a new professional, a young rider up there, he's a bit too nervous and maybe he will take off a bit too fast and not allow the riders to get into position. So the first 150, 200 metres is important that you get everybody in line and then start to just build your pace from there.
A couple of questions in. Nick Gale is asking, what time is given to a team should they not get 5 riders over the line? Well, that would be an extraordinary state of affairs if they actually didn't finish. Well, they'd finish with the time of the 4 riders, which you can be pretty sure wouldn't be a great time. And why is Cav in the points jersey, please? Ken Hardacre asked. Well, he's actually in the leader's jersey. The leader's jersey, the Maglia Rosa of the leader on general classification. It's Nasser Bouhanni who will be wearing the points jersey, because obviously Mark Cavendish can't wear 2 jerseys because it's way too hot for that. The Colombians struggling. Some of them really struggling to hold the wheel. That's Jarlinson Pantano of Colombia. Just manages to get a bit of relief. Gets straight back up into the line. He's ready to do another turn. He's not asking his teammates. Sometimes if you're struggling, you might just usher the guy in and let him say, well, okay, after you, Claude, but that doesn't do anyone any good, really.
Yes, and it looks like they've already lost a man. There seems to be 8 riders, so they're a man down already, unless he was just a little bit out of shot there, but it seems like there's a man missing from the Colombia team.
Yeah, well, some of the leading professional squads will practice and test as much as possible. Otto Belisol getting set to head away. Lars Bach will be one of their strong men, pulling on the front and doing big turns, you can be sure, in the early stages.
Vincente Renes looks very happy there. He's smiling on the starting ramp.
Did you ever smile before a time trial?
No, it's rare we see that.
Might have been a grimace, was it? A sneer? Yeah, maybe he just doesn't understand what's about to happen.
10 seconds.
So this is the 5th or 6th team away. I'll have to just get up my statistics here. Colombia got it going. AG2R followed them. We've also had Team Argos. Bardiani Blancos went 3rd. Bardiani, Valvole, CSF, Inox, then Team Argos, Saxo Bank, Tinkoff Bank, and now the Lotto Belisol get away. They're the 7th team out on the road. Next up, very shortly, Sky Pro Cycling. 3 minutes as the Colombians start to hit a little ascent. And these ramps certainly are demanding. This course is one that will demand something from every type of rider on the team.
Well, it's important that the riders know each other, and you know, you have to when you arrive on the climbs, you have to get a guy there. Hopefully you will have a guy who has experience, and he'll, you know, go up the hill at a real good pace, but not too hard. He'll not attack the climb where it will cause difficulty for everybody else, and, you know, lose 2 or 3 of his teammates on the climb. So you know, it's about knowing how good the other riders are, and a lot of the teams who ride, for example, preparing the sprint, they have, you know, good experience as well. They know how to ride very close together, where we see the Colombian riders, they're not used to doing that. Like the team of Mark Cavendish or Mika Palmer Quickstep, you know, very familiar with riding in the final kilometres, and we see them yesterday riding a lot on the front, and that's good practice for team time trial, where some of the teams don't do that, especially the climbing teams. When they get to the mountain, they start attacking. There's no question of, you know, riding in a formation like this as much as some of the other teams.
Great effort there by D'Olivier Ospina Navarro. Great effort for him to get back onto the wheel, because he was almost gone there. But they need all the riders they can get, and he's managed to get back into the cocoon and back into the slipstream of his riders as they head over the top of that ramp. So it's Team Blanco that have the early lead through the first, well, there's one intermediate time check on this 17.4 kilometres run, and it's at 7.9 kilometres. So now Sky Pro Cycling, Bradley Wiggins will be leading them away. And this team carrying 2 of last year's participants in the Giro d'Italia when, as I say, they finished, well, they finished in 9th place in the team time trial. Solid performance, 30 seconds down. This is has a very different makeup. There's only from last year's team, Henao and Uran, 2 Colombian riders there, where Uran, of course, went on. There he is in shot just to the right there. Went on to take the young rider's jersey. A wonderful and definite overall contender if Bradley Wiggins wasn't here. And of course all the teams are running their time trial bikes. There was some speculation that because of the difficulties of getting all the equipment over to the island, I mean, all the teams, riders, officials, everyone belonging to the race all came over in a series of ferries this morning. The ferry is about 40 to 60 minutes from Naples, depending on which ferry you get. So it's a little bit of a spin out there. It's 30 kilometers from the centre of Ischia all the way to the centre of Naples. So it's a nice little journey. Sky get underway. Let's try and set it up. Nice little bit of a shot at just how technical it is on these descents. The Colombians are quite taken with their Willier bikes. Very fashionable time trial bikes. Yeah, and there was some talk that some of the teams might actually think about using road bikes, but this is definitely a time trial course, and a course for time trial bikes.
Yes, I think it's very much for time trial bikes. You can see there, you know, there's a lot of very fast sections, and the hills or the little, you know, kick-ups that are thrown in there, they're not, you know, steep enough where you'd need to go to the normal road bike. So we can see everybody up to this moment starting with, you know, with their time trial bikes, and I think it's going to be the choice of all the teams from here on.
Colombians heading towards the line. And riders at the front have to have a little look around to make sure that they're bringing lots of riders to the line. Looks they've got at least 8, so they dropped one early, but at least they've kept the group together. Got the most out of everyone. And that tunnel, 250 meters from the line, will also grab attention. And now you get an indication of just how technical this is. The first team to finish is the first team off the ramp. It is the Colombian team setting the benchmark as they pile towards the line. 23 minutes by my calculation. 45 kilometers an hour. You can be sure that the winning team will go a lot faster than that, but some speculation we might get up around 50 to 52 kilometers an hour. I wonder, will the winning team be quite as fast as all that? So the Colombians have suffered as much as they're going to suffer for today, and they can park those time trial bikes until stage 8. Meanwhile, out on the route at the moment, Team Argos Shimano head through the intermediate split in 5th position. 10:55 for them. And now the Vinny Fantini squad are preparing on the start ramp. Stefano Garzali, the old man of Italian cycling, carries their hopes. Some speculation he might go for the mountains jersey. Sant'Ambrogio, though, is a young man on the up, and many people's dark horse favourite for honours in the Giro d'Italia of 2013. So Vinny Fantini are the 9th team out on the course. 23 teams in total. Sky are out there pushing hard. Join us for the next part after this short break. Welcome back to stage 2 of Giro d'Italia 2013 on the island of Ischia, just off the Bay of Naples. And Vacon Soleil squad are getting prepared to head down the start ramp. They're the 10th of 23 teams that head away and into this 17.4 kilometre team time trial. All about trying to get your riders working in perfect unison and coming up with the best possible time. Well, Colombia set the benchmark with 23 minutes and 1 second. AG2R La Mondiale, you just saw there, they managed to pip them by 6 seconds, so 2 teams are in. Sky Pro Cycling are out on course. They're just heading towards the first intermediate split. And Pate is using the old Growl time trial bike. It'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure whether Bradley Wiggins, if there's any question of him using the new Bolide bike, about which there's been so much talk. There's just one of them as far as I know, or at least just one for him. And a significant development by all accounts from the Pinarello squad as the Blanco team try to see what they can do about the 22.55 of AG2R. Looks like they're going to beat it, well, a bit handy enough inside the last 400 meters for the Dutch squad. Working hard to come up with a series of results that will mean that they'll be able to secure the sponsorship necessary for this team to continue into next season, and we wish them well because they've had great results this year. It would be a shame if such an accomplished squad, which seems to have changed the way it operates significantly, were to disappear from racing. So that's 22 seconds gained on AG2R, so 22.33 for the Blanco squad. Bardiani Valvoli be next up to finish. After that, the Argus squad and Robert Hessink will be relatively satisfied with that. We'll only get a clear idea later on, but I suppose the main job is about staying safe and staying within 30 seconds of the leading contenders. Otto Belisol through the split. 12 seconds down on Argus, so that's disappointing from them. And meanwhile, it's not going absolutely perfectly for Danny Pate. We saw him at the back of the group and he's got shelled by the squad. So the former national time trial champion at under 23 level from the US. Well, he's got a lonely old ride now, and this is no fun at all.
No, and he looked to be in difficulty very earlier there. We could see him on the rear, not comfortable at all. And for Pate, he's normally a big, strong guy. We can see they're very powerful, but not looking good. Very earlier on, not good, which is surprising.
The Cannondale team getting set to head away. They tend to be pretty good at these team time trials. In their former guise as Liquigas, they've taken 2 of the 7 team time trials in the past 7 years. And of course they have the white jersey there of Elia Viviani, the under 25 category leader, the youth classification leader. There was a question in about why was one of the AG2R Le Mondial riders wearing blue. Well, that was the Luxembourg national time trial champion Ben Gastauer. Looked like it was French national time trial jerseys, but actually he's the Luxembourg TT champ. Notice how Pate's got back on. Have they waited for him? That's very unusual. Well, that's very, very impressive from Pate if he's actually managed to do that. He certainly has. Christian Knies just ahead of him. Well, you would have said he was just gone for the day. There's no question they stalled and sat up for them. I mean, if he's going to get dropped, he's no use to them later on.
Well, I'm surprised that he got back on because, we could see the gap there to the riders out in front of him. It was quite a substantial gap, and for him to close that down, I reckon, they did knock it off for a second because maybe concerned about leaving him too early out there. There's also like the time delay here that you have to be careful with, that if you lose a rider very early, he could end up being eliminated.
Right, and they do need Pate for later in the race, yeah. So, I mean, does that question the value of this as a test? I mean, the Giro d'Italia has been, as we see the Bardiani Valvoli squad pushing hard, and they're just bringing 5 riders to the line, so they've not been too concerned about leaving a couple of riders out there, piling to the line, and 5th rider, a couple of bike lengths back, stops the clock at 22.47, so they go second. So it's not always about bringing all your riders through. And a lot of the leading squads that are particularly good at this are quite comfortable with the idea of jettisoning riders.
Yes, and it's all about making the calculation, but you're taking a risk when you have 5 riders in the in the last number of kilometres. That's always a big risk, because if one of them have a flash, well then you're going to have to wait for them. We've seen up till now, they try and finish with 6 or 7 riders. You can't take the risk very late on. Use your 6th man relay.
That Skyers clearly going very, very well, and of all the teams that are out there so far, they're certainly amongst the leading contenders. 11 teams have left the start ramp at this point. Pate's just sitting on the rear. He's not able to contribute. Doesn't look like he's gone up the line. Katusha, second in the team time trial a year ago in Verona. Clearly, they're pretty good at this.
15 secondi, 15 seconds. Attenzione, 10 secondi, 10 seconds.
Although just 2 of their riders from last year's team time trial in Verona are present in this lineup. And it's been an unusual year, you'd have to say, for Katusha. Originally denied a World Tour place by the UCI. They appealed that decision to CAS. They were ultimately successful, and they were readmitted to the World Tour, by which time, of course, the Giro d'Italia organisers, RCS, had invited their 4 guest teams, and they weren't prepared to ask one of those teams to stand aside. So we have the unusual situation of fully 207 riders starting this year's Giro d'Italia. 23 teams out there, 1 more than you might have expected. Vinny Fantini working in unison, and it really is a beautiful sight. There is no more perfect sight in cycling than a really well drilled team time trial squad. But then when it goes wrong, it looks really, really wrong indeed. At the moment, it looks as if Vinny Fantini are working pretty well. Coming in towards the intermediate time split and chasing the time of Sky Pro Cycling of 10 minutes and 12 seconds, and they're not going to trouble that. It looks as if they will cross the line. Will they manage to get in ahead of the Blancos? They certainly will. 10:21. 10 seconds down, and now Christian Knaus, who we saw at the back of the group, just 1 place ahead of Danny Pate. It's as if he's the next man to suffer. The question is, where is Pate? One wonders what exactly the problem was for Pate, that he's managed to recover. Maybe Knaus just went up the line once too often. I mean, sometimes, Sean, you have to decide whether, you know, if you actually go up there, you're going to be of any benefit whatsoever.
Well, I think when you get to the halfway point, or let's say the split time, the 7.9 kilometres, once you get through that point, well, then you can start, you know, start losing riders, and you know the tactic or the calculation will be made. You know, try and get to a point where you know you keep all your men together, and then they really give it, you know, all they've got, and then peel off, and that is, you know, probably the tactic of Team Sky.
Argus stopped the clock in 23 minutes and 18 seconds.
23 minutes, 18.60.
And they go 5th. And again, just under 45 kilometres an hour. So this one is proving a sterner test than even the organisers expected. Their projected times were all around 48, 50, 52 kilometres an hour. We're going to see faster times later on, and faster average speeds, but I don't think it's going to take it up quite that high. And one contribution on Twitter, Daniel Eckersey into at DQ Sport, he says it looks like Pate is stuck in the small chainring. Well, I didn't catch that, but if that's true, it would certainly explain his problem. Maybe it dropped onto the small chainring and he had to get it back up, in which case they may have made the decision, with the benefit of radios and the knowledge that Pate had this little mechanical problem. Well, we need legs like he's got. We'll give him an opportunity to get back on. Salvatore Puccio now at the back of the group for Sky. And as you say, Sean, they'll use their riders in different parts of the course. It's just 17.4 kilometres, but there are 4 different ramps on it. There's the little flat section and the descent sections as well, and it's horses for courses. Certain riders will be able to do certain component parts of that course. So some riders will be on the back when it's gone up the hill, and then they'll pile to the front and do a huge turn when they hit the descents. And as you say, it's not necessarily a major problem if you use up a rider in a big way, ask him to do a big turn for a few kilometres.
Yes. Well, you can afford to do that because, as we've mentioned, 5 men to finish. You have got to get 5 to come over to the line to get the team time. So, you know, you can use these 4 other riders. You know, you can use a number of them. But again, you always want to walk to safety, keep one in reserve there as you go to the finish. But the other 3 riders, you can use them at a point, and they always make, you know, the tactic when they calculate the route here. You look at it and you say, well, from that point on, we can start losing riders. And, you know, the 3 riders that are going to peel off, they will really really, you know, give it a lot of turns on the front, longer turns on the front, to really pull the group on and then just peel off and come in at their own pace. And you know, that is something I think the bigger teams are really going for. It will have all that calculated, very much so.
Well, the Saxos have fractured considerably. They bring 5 riders to the line in a time of 22:48, so it's good enough for third place. Still Blanco lead with 22:33.
22 minutes.
So solid effort from the Saxo Tinkoffs, of which not that much is expected really in terms of overall contending. Bardiani Valvoli, of course, are 13 seconds behind at the moment in second position. The Bacon Soleil's now heading towards the intermediate time split. Not going to trouble the best time, of course, set at the moment by Sky Pro Cycling, 10 minutes and 12 seconds. Bacon Soleil, 10:28. In front, the Sky team, oh, well, they've lost another one. Didn't quite catch who that is. I think it might have been Zandio, but we'll get confirmation of it. Philip Mercer is asking on Twitter, will the average speeds of the Giro riders increase due to the extra team, or is it not measurable as it's a different course conditions each year? So it's an extra 9 riders. Bringing it from 198 up to 207, is that likely to?
No, I don't think it will have any effect. You know, the number of teams, it depends on what way they race, and you know, sometimes in a big tour they start off in the first week of racing and they race, you know, really full on. Other times it's not as aggressive in the earlier part, and that will have an effect on the overall average for the full distance of the race.
Yes, it's not just the course and conditions, but actually how the riders ride it. And that's not even, you couldn't begin to speculate until the race starts exactly how they go about it. So that's now on the back, Rigoberto Urán, and they're down to 5 riders, but they're working well. And Wiggins is in there and looking comfortable, and he is on the Graal machine, the Pinarello Graal, which was the absolute bee's knees thing to have a couple of years ago, but now they have the Bolide, which is usurped it in terms of desirability. Will it make a huge difference in the time trials? They're saying up to 15% reduced drag. I saw that figure the other day. I couldn't believe it. If that's true, it's certainly a very impressive figure. And it is a very impressive machine, but the Pinarello Graal is, well, it's certainly not an impediment. I don't think it's any handicap for them. 183, the diminutive figure of Feinau. He's having a very strong season, is the Colombian rider, and many people's big tip for the future. Now the Cannondales heading towards the finish line, or heading towards the intermediate split, I should say. 10:26 to go fourth, just a couple of seconds ahead of Bacon Soleil, and that's what, 13 seconds down, 14 seconds down on Sky Pro Cycling. Lotto Belisol now are not going to win this team time trial. Inside the last 250 meters. They're bringing 6 riders to the line, is it? So good tidy stuff from Lotto Belisol, but they slipped down the order, and of the 11 teams out on course, and we've had times in from 7 of them, they go to 6th position.
23 minutes, 5 points.
And 32 seconds, 6th place for them. It's not
impressive at all, and you would have thought, you know, a Belgian squad would be a little bit better at this kind of stuff.
Yes, well, you would expect them to be better, and again, you know, they're a team that haven't any worries about taking risk out on this one. But you know, if you haven't got the riders, and I think within Lotto they haven't got the real good team time trial specialists, and the big powerful men, they look powerful, but the time is telling. But still, I suppose 30 seconds, you know, down to 6th position, it's not a huge amount of time lost. It'll depend on the bigger teams now, as we see Sky here coming in, how much, you know, they will lose on it. But we're making that calculation as well. The top teams, they'll be certainly no more than 30 seconds, and it looks even less than that this moment.
A couple of Lotto domestiques are passed by the Flying Sky Pro Cycling squad. What it's worth, Lotto finished 16th in last year's team time trial. In the Giro, as Lampre Merida head away from the start ring. Now drilling it and heading for the line. Sky Pro Cycling bringing 5 riders through to the finish. And looks as if they're heading towards top spot. They've got a minute now to get to the finish, so I don't think there's any doubt about it that they're going to be coming up with the best time, but how much ahead of the Blanco team are they going to be? Well, quite a bit indeed. They're inside the last 400 metres, and this is a very impressive performance indeed, and this is the ideal start to Bradley Wiggins' attack on the Giro d'Italia of 2013. I think there's every chance that he's going to be a very satisfied man at dinner tonight. Drilling it for the line inside the final 100 metres. The Sky Pro Cycling team head to the finish in Fiorio at the end of 17.4 kilometres, 22 minutes and 5 seconds. That's the new benchmark time set by the Sky Pro Cycling team. 28 seconds to the good ahead of the Blanco squad, and that is the new benchmark time. 28 seconds ahead of Blanco. Bardiani there in 41 seconds behind. Saxos and AG2R currently in the top 5, but for how much longer? So it's all looking good for the Skies at the moment. What have Katusha got to offer? Join us to find out after these. Welcome back. The Vini Fantini Italia squad are out on course, coming towards the finish through this little tunnel with 400 metres to go, and drilling it for the line. They've got 6 riders, I think it is, still of their 9 that started out just 17 kilometres earlier, and heading towards a very impressive time. Going to be second, I think. They should get inside the time of Blanco Pro Cycling team and slot in behind Sky Pro Cycling for second on the timesheet at the moment. So Vini Fantini stopped the clock as they head across the line. 22 minutes and 27 seconds for the 5th rider across the line. And that compares favourably, you'd have to say, with the 22 seconds difference between themselves and Sky Pro Cycling. So Vini Fantini go second ahead of Blanco Pro Cycling and behind the Sky Pro Cycling squad.
And a good performance by the team, because you know, you would expect some of the teams that are out ahead of them there to have a better time, but you know, working it very well, finishing with 5 as well. I think the calculation probably, you know, working well.
It's a pro continental squad, so it's a pretty good effort. Yeah, they had to get an invite to this race, so anytime any of those races teams do particularly good rides, it's always impressive. Androni Giocattoli, Venezuela squad. Speaking of invited squads, the perennially underfunded team of Gianni Savio, putting on a manful performance. 6th fastest through the time split. And there's the provisional standings at the moment, with a very solid afternoon's work done by the Sky squad. Much to the relief, I think, probably of Bradley Wiggins, his first time trial rendezvous of this race. And now his great rival Vincenzo Nibali is looking forward to an opportunity to try and put one over the Skies. I think really for the Astana squad, they'll be hoping that they limited their losses to the Sky. They'll have seen a very, very impressive time put up there. Vincenzo Nibali, this is another opportunity, I think, really to try and you know, for this stage, do we really believe that Astana are going to get ahead of Sky?
Well, I think you know, they have something to work on now, because they can relate to the intermediate time of Sky, and you can be sure that, you know, the team directors will be, you know, taking a note of that, and they will be, you know, telling the riders, you know, you have to up the pace a bit as they get to the intermediate time. If they're a little bit down on it, they will be trying to, you know, push them on and get a bit more out of them. So that is a good time, as in individual time trialing as well. If you have some of the bigger favourites out in front of you, you know, you can calculate your time, you can get time checks on them, and that's the same for team time trial and the same for Astana here, because with Sky starting quite early, it's a good benchmark for them.
Would you like to know, or would you prefer to just get in your own zone and do your own thing?
Well, I think if the team is, you know, riding well, they're onto a good performance, you go through the intermediate time, you're matching Sky, then you have a full team already all the time together. You can really start pushing on, and you can give the others, you know, some of the riders that will be, you know, peeling off, just to really push it on. And if, you know, if they've got the power, if they've got it in there, well then, you know, knowing the time that Sky have put in, that is, you know, an advantage, and you can, you know, just really really make everybody dig in the end and try and go for a victory, maybe.
Solid effort here by the Vacansoleil squad as they head towards the line inside the last couple of 100 metres. Big turn there to take them through the tunnel by Greg Abbo. And as they head across the line, they're down to 5 riders, but it's a time that's good enough. Well, they're slipping down the order a little bit. It looked like it was going to be a bit better, but still 22 minutes and 39 seconds is good enough for 4th position. So Vacansoleil
22 minutes, 39.56.
go to 4th on the timesheet, just behind the Sky Pro Cycling squad by, 37 seconds. Just over half a minute. 34 seconds is the indication there, so my maths is a little bit awry. Not the first time in history that's ever happened. Won't be a great surprise to my maths teachers, but the Euskaltel Euskadi squad would really be expected to do a whole lot at this. Finished stock last in this test last year, fully 2:22 down on the winner's Garmin, and 40 seconds slower than the next slowest team, AG2R. So this is, well, maybe they hit problems last year. I can't remember exactly what happened, but this is definitely not the favoured discipline of the Euskaltel Euskadi team. The Basque squad, well, they like it when it's all mountains, less interested really when it comes to time trials. Française de Jeu now. And resplendent in the red jersey of the points leader. He's actually 3rd in that competition, but a great sprinting performance by Nasser Bouhanni yesterday. Led to some interesting comments from Bernie Eisel on Twitter afterwards. It certainly was a pretty physical sprint, and Nasser Bouhanni showing that he's not cowed by the reputation of some of the other riders around him, regardless of... in fact, it wasn't so much the reputation of the other riders. He wanted Cavendish's wheel, didn't he? And he was willing to have a good old scrap with Adam Blythe.
Yes, as there were many others, I reckon, in the final number of kilometres, all wanting to get in the slipstream of Cavendish, get on his wheel. And we did see the overhead shot where Bouhanni was really pushing there with Adam Blythe, and the elbow was going quite strongly a number of times. And you get that in sprints, and of course when you get the overhead shot, you get a real good picture of it.
And how do you feel about it? Things getting a little bit physical in a sprint. Is it? Did you ever throw the elbows in a sprint? Has it ever happened?
Yes, of course. You always do that as a sprinter. You get into that situation, and when you're in a wheel and somebody come in there and they're at a barge, and you have to be able to hold them off and push them, and not allow them to get you off the wheel. And I think Bouhanni yesterday, the elbow was he was giving the elbow a bit too much. You can lie on a guy and you can push a bit, but if you start digging your elbow into the other guy beside you, the commissars, I think if they see that a number of times, they will be coming down on you.
Yes, I suppose as a young rider coming in, you want to establish and show that you're not worried and cowed by other people's reputations, but by the same token, you don't want to end up getting yourself a reputation. Okay, the Cannondale squad, speaking of sprinters, Elia Viviani is in there in the white jersey. He's the leading rider in the youth classification and heading towards pretty good time. Just slipping behind, but it's a solid effort from the Cannondales, and I think they'll be happy with their 22 minutes and 40 seconds.
22 minutes, 40.07 man. 5th place for Canada.
That's good enough for 5th, so the Cannondales and Viviani will be relieved. Haven't lost too much time. Well, it's a little bit of time to Sky, but 35 seconds is not such an issue for them. They'll probably be more interested, I think, in the sprints competition in this Giro d'Italia of 2013. Lampre Merida are out there pushing hard in their pink jerseys, pink helmets. It is a lurid look, but it's a very familiar look. We've had it for so many years now, and it's an old friend, really, that jersey combination. Now the Radio Shacks getting set to head out, and great opportunity to for these riders for GC. Of course, you've got Danilo Honda, who finished well up in the gallop yesterday. Nizzolo as well was in 6th position, and both of those riders, well, whichever one they pick, I suppose, to head across the line first, if they come up with a very, very impressive time, and it's quite a bit faster than Amiga Pharma Quickstep, then one of these riders could well be in the pink jersey this evening. So plenty of motivation for the Radio Shacks. Radio Shack Leopard squad, to give them their full title, or should we say Leopard. So they head off. They're the 19th of 23 teams to head off from the ramp. We've still got Garmin, BMC, Orica Green Edge and Amiga Pharma Quickstep to come. Join us to see them after this. You're very welcome back to stage 2 of Giro d'Italia 2013. The Garmin Sharp squad are getting prepared to head away from the start ramp. Katusha have gone to second on the timesheets, just 19 seconds down on Sky Pro Cycling. Superb effort from the Russian squad as the Garmin Sharp team head down the ramp and get underway. Lamprey and Movistar are out there, and I can tell you Movistar have gone faster than Sky Pro Cycling through the intermediate split point at 7.9 kilometers. So they were 2 seconds faster than Sky, and that a very impressive effort. The distinctive blue skin suit is being worn by the leader of the mountains classification. That's Giovanni Visconti, who was in the break for much of yesterday. He's at the back of affairs at the moment, but Movistar clearly have their eyes on stage honours today. Alex Dowsett there at the back of the group in his first Grand Tour. Still in and still contributing to their team time trial effort. Meanwhile, Garmin Sharp, one of the top exponents of team time trialing in world cycling. They've got the reigning champion rider Hejidal wearing the #1 Dossard, and he's in there with some of the strongest riders in the world at this discipline. And David Miller indeed said he was so disappointed to not be part of Hejidal's success last year, that he really had to be on the start line yesterday, and disappointed indeed he was too, because he ended up on the floor at one stage. He made one of his suitably ironic and slightly sarcastic terms about how delighted he was to how much fun it is to crash on the very first stage of a Grand Tour. Now Androni Giocattoli head towards the line. Just bringing 5 riders. It's a compact group that heads to the conclusion. They set off with 9, they finish with 5. It's not going to be a world-beating time, but still solid performance. 22:51 for Androni Giocattoli, and they go to 9th.
22 minutes 51.66, 9th place so far.
So the standing still led by the Sky Pro Cycling squad, 22 minutes and 5 seconds. That's the target for Movistar out on course. Here come the Astanas chasing the intermediate split time of the Movistars. They're not going to beat that. They're not going to beat Sky, Lamprey or Katusha. Still, it's a solid effort. 10:18. And now 20 of the 23 teams have left the start gate. BMC, Orica Green Edge and Amiga Pharma Quickstep still to leave the ramp. And Lamprey's out on course.
And the intermediate time, of course, for Sky was 10:12, so 6 seconds for Nibali and the Astana team down. It's something like they will be made aware of it now, and if they have got, you know, still the manpower there, and there's still some of the guys feel really strong, they could, you know, finish very strongly. And 6 seconds, it's, you know, it's a good time. It's a good place to be in at the moment.
Right. It's about keeping as close as possible. Of course, for Vincenzo Nibali, it's all about the amount of time he can gain in the mountains and the amount of time he can stop himself from losing in the time trials. And the team time trial has to be added into the equation there, as Lamprey lose a rider. But they've only 4 up front, so they need this rider. And a little look over the shoulders from the first 2 riders as they realise they've got to crank it off a little bit.
And you don't want to crank it off when you're up front. It's very hard to slow down, but yeah, you just have got to do it. And the director sportif, you can be sure that he is, you know, just calling, guys, you have to just slow it a bit because our 5th man is in difficulty and you cannot go on. But from experience in the past, you know, when there's a rider just a little bit under difficulty and you slow it down a bit, it's a difficult thing to do. It's very hard for the riders to slow down, but for that 5th rider who is suffering, you know, you really have to dig in there, and it's a horrible time.
Yeah, I mean, they have to wait because they need to give him the maximum slipstream advantage that they possibly can.
For Euskaltel.
Euskaltel, do we slow up or do we keep going? Well, you've got 4 up front, so you might as well slow up. You might as well dawdle through to the line, boys, because you've got that one all wrong. And Euskaltel are showing that it's not really their favourite discipline.
they've got it totally wrong, because you cannot just allow a rider to get 60-70 metres off the rear, and you just have to slow it down and wait for him. And as we can see here, they're going to have to really knock it off before they get to the line, because it's the fifth man who is going to count.
So the first 4 riders are starting their recovery for tomorrow's stage a little bit earlier than expected, before they even get to the finish of this one, indeed. And disappointing for Euskaltel, because they weren't going too badly to that point, but just couldn't quite get it right. And we wonder if there wasn't maybe a radio malfunction there, or perhaps some sort of technical issue, as we get the unusual sight of the Euskaltels touring and coasting across the line. Here's a perfect example. The clock will continue to run until this rider stops the clock. The 5th rider for the Euskaltels makes it 23 minutes and 6 seconds and makes it 13th position.
1 minute and 1 second down, and it's not their speciality at all. And when you have a rider and your 5th rider, he's in big difficulty, you just have to really slow it down and suffer the loss. But it wasn't going to change a lot anyway, I think, because the situation they're in, if the rider hung in there, they were going to be maybe 10 or 15 seconds faster, and it wasn't going to change anything for them in the classification.
The grand scheme of things, no. For what it's worth, they finished on the same second as Lotto Belisol. It's been embarrassing for both teams, really. Lotto Belisol also on 23 minutes and 6 seconds, and they were indicating that Euskaltel were ahead of Lotto Belisol, so presumably on the tenths of a second, the way the second was split up. It went to the favour of the Basque squad. Orica Greenedge looking a bit nervous, getting your breathing right ahead of this. Matthew Harley-Goss, good sprinting performance from him yesterday. Luke Durbridge, of course, is the Australian national time trial champion, and he'll be a big motor that they'll be calling on to produce big watts and drag that team through to a good result in this afternoon's time trial. Lampre's working well together of the remaining 5 riders. Having said that, the rider on the back struggling a little bit, but then of course he gets there's perhaps a little bit bigger wake created by the 4 riders in front, so he has that little bit of leeway. He can leave at the extra bike length and still get the slipstreaming advantage. Having said that, they need his watts up front as they all ride through to the line. It's looking like a good effort indeed from Lampre Merida. They're not going to beat the Sky Pro Cycling squad, but a solid effort coming through from Lampre. Heading for the line, it's the Lampre Merida squad. The time they're chasing, well, it's a long way outside their compass at this point. The leading time is 22:05 for the Sky Pro Cycling team. And Lampre go to fourth actually. Oh, just as the 5th rider went across the line, slipped down into 4th place, but 22:57 is an excellent effort. 22:27, I should say. And they just lost out to Vini Fantini, Italia, on the split of that second. So both of those teams on 22:27 seconds. But it's Lampre that go to 4th, and Vini Fantini stay in 3rd position. Now Radio Shack Leppard out on track, or out on course. Again, just under 45 kilometers an hour. Early stages for Garmin out there, and they're working as one. 9 riders out there. As I say, they're through 8 minutes at this point. Now the movie stars are down to 5 riders. And you can hear the roaring and shouting from the car behind as the DS realises that they're onto a ride here. This could be a pretty good performance. Visconti takes a drink. Second last man. If he has time for a drink in a 17.4 kilometre time trial, then obviously he's probably more relaxed than he should be. You see any reason to be taking a drink in 17.4 kilometres?
Well, it's always better to take something with you. As you can see, the riders here, most of them starting with something, because you get, the dry conditions, you can get, a little bit dry throat out there, and just to help that, it's always good to have a drink on the bike.
Oh, I always thought they had a bottle because it was an aerodynamic advantage offered by it. Now, the pink jersey of the race leader of Giro d'Italia, Mark Cavendish, is distinctive there in the middle. of his Amiga Pharma Quick-Step teammates with the considerable motivation of racing to try and retain this jersey through till tomorrow. Superb performance all day yesterday from this squad to deliver Cavendish into a situation where he was at least able to miss the crash when it happened with 2 kilometres to go. A little bit disappointing that Stegman's had his mechanical issues, but Cavendish, well, he's just so fast. Visconti now suffering a little bit on the back as Movistar try and squeeze the absolute maximum out of their legs heading towards the finishing line. Well, it's looking like a good effort, but one of the Lamprey riders dropped by his squad. Does he get in the way? No. And they're not going to beat the Sky Pro Cycling squad, but it's a good effort from Movistar. Disappointing ultimately in terms of stage honours. That would be their major consideration. But will they hang on to second place? They certainly will, no doubt about that. 22-14 for the Movistar squad. And they go to second on the timesheets. And that is increasingly looking like a very, very impressive time indeed by Sky Pro Cycling, which I can remind you finished 9th in this equivalent test last year. 9 seconds now between themselves and Movistar. They've got a 19-second advantage over the third-place team. Garmin's out, and through the intermediate split, it's not as impressive as we might have expected. They've managed to keep their entire team together. 10:22 is what's 10 seconds down on Sky's. It's 12 seconds down on the best time we've seen so far, which is Movistar. So a little bit of a surprise there, considering Garmin's DNA in team time trialing. Astana team out there doing their level best to keep Vincenzo Nibali in contention. 6 riders for them at this point as they head towards the back end of this team time trial. Ischia to Fiorio on the beautiful island of Ischia. It was used for a time trial before in 1959, once before in the Giro d'Italia. A shock result on that occasion with Neo-Pro Antonino Catalano. He beat Jacques Anquetil in the time trial and shocked everyone by doing so. This is the 21st team time trial in the history of the Giro d'Italia. This is the 96th edition of the event, and the Astana team working well through that roundabout, heading down towards the final tunnel, this little tunnel. And this island, which has a population of 62,000, would you believe? Just 10 kilometres long, 7 kilometres wide, but they squeeze as many people as they possibly can onto them. Very popular with German visitors, apparently. Angela Merkel is a regular.
And Astana doing a good time here.
Yeah, this looks like a good one. Sky are in trouble here because Astana heading into the final 600 metres. Well, will they get through 600 metres in time? It doesn't look as if they will. But still, it's going to be a very impressive time from Astana, and they could well hang on for second position. 10 seconds to get to the line for the Astana squad. It doesn't look as if they're going to be able to do it, but it's going to be very, very close. And certainly they should have a decent advantage in second place. Movistar's 22-14 is the chase now, and they might just hang on to second place, Movistar, because they split in the run to the line, and it's about the 5th rider across. Astana go to 3rd, that's confirmed, 22-19 for the Astana squad. Nonetheless, I think Vincenzo Nibali will be relatively satisfied with that. So that's 14 seconds lost to Bradley Wiggins in the chase for the pink jersey. BMC Racing team of Cadel Evans, and is that the diminutive figure of Cadel to the fore, giving a big dig. Didn't want to do Giro d'Italia, wanted to put all his eggs in the Tour de France basket, was told that no, I think we'd really like you to do a good ride in Giro d'Italia, so had to revise his preparation. At the moment it looks as if it's going okay for Cadel Evans, who really emerged as a road racing contender in this race in 2003 by surprising everyone as a former mountain biker by wearing the pink jersey for a couple of days. Amiga Pharma Quick-Step out there for Mark Cavendish. Cavendish going up the line himself. There was a question earlier on Twitter actually, is that why is Mark Cavendish such a good rider in team time trials but not particularly good in individual time trials?
Well, that is something, it's an interesting one, because the sprinters, they are good in team time trials, and you know, they can really perform well, because you just go to the front, you do a short effort of 100-150 metres at a very high pace, and then you peel off and you come back and you get a little bit of recovery time, and the sprinters, they can recover very, very quickly. Once they get a number of seconds in the drafting there, they can take it up again and push on, and it's always been the case where the sprinters are quite good in team time trial, and actually some time trials are not as good in the team time trial, because there's the change of rhythm all the time, and they don't like that. Some of the real big time trial specialists, they just like the same rhythm all the time, and they cannot take that sudden accelerations out of a corner when the team is accelerating on the front. And if you come into a corner and you're the last man, well, then that's a very difficult one, because you have to make a big effort to just keep on follow, to keep in the wheel if you're the last man coming out of the corners.
So it's almost like a crit, with all of these little changes of pace all of a sudden. And we saw Thomas Decker of the Garmin Sharp squad suffering a little bit just as they rolled across the top of that last drag. He was a couple of bike lengths behind as they went to the... what exactly is going on here for Adam Blythe? Does he hit a problem? Yeah, he's got some sort of mechanical issue. Is he going to... or is he just... I think it might well be an explosion from the legs point of view.
Yes, it's an interesting one, because he is given the signal for everyone to go on, and it's possible that he is just not feeling good. He cannot contribute anymore, and if that is the case, well then it's the thing to do. Allow your teammates to continue on.
Française de Jeu have jettisoned a rider not too long ago, but still they're bringing a lot of riders to the line. Looks like a solid effort from the French squad. A sign of Nasser Bouhanni in there, mind you. Nasser Bouhanni third across the line in yesterday's sprint, perhaps feeling the effects of that effort. The recovery mightn't be quite what he wants, or maybe it's just not really the kind of discipline that he's able to really shine at. But then if Cavendish does, there's no reason why Bouhanni as a sprinter wouldn't be able to, but he's marked absent at this point as they head for the line. And Française de Jeu 23 minutes dead, 55 seconds behind, and that's just good enough for 14th position.
At the 7.9 kilometre point, Omega Pharma Quick-Step raced through in a time of 10 minutes 29 seconds.
So that's the scene over Ischia. Well, there's a 62,000 inhabitants, and tourism is the major consideration for this island. It's Sky Pro Cycling that have the lead of the event, though. 9 seconds ahead of Movistar, 14 seconds to the good ahead of Astana. Katusha there with a good result for them once more, but there's still a couple of teams out on course. BMC, Orica Green Edge and Amiga Pharma Quick-Step yet to record a time. Next team through the intermediate split point are Orica Green Edge. It's traditionally pretty good at this. I think we just saw them through in 13th fastest time. It's very novel. 4 screens giving an indication of what different teams are doing, different points out on the course, and different experiences for different teams. There's no doubt about it. As we see from the Garmin squad, Nathan Haas struggling a little bit at the back of their group, and obviously some of their riders are really drilling it in a big way, because 1 or 2 of them are struggling, but that's what we're going to see early in the test, and then later on they finish with their 5 riders. They have to be smoother, they just simply have to be, and that's that.
Yes, well, it's all about if you have the riders good in the end. First of all, in the earlier part, you utilise everybody, and it's all about in the second half. That's where you can make the difference as well. If you have 5, 6, 7 riders can hold on together and go into the second part of the time, for the second half, let's call it, and are feeling good, well then you can really finish strong. And a lot of the teams can do that. They can be a little bit down at the intermediate checkpoint where there's 6 or 8 seconds off the pace, but they can finish real strong. And some of the big team time trial teams, the specialists, can do that so well.
Well, Nathan Haas not enjoying it as much as a couple of his teammates, but still just hanging on grimly there, the young Australian. Just ahead of him, Peter Stetina, who has made a name for himself in this race in the last couple of years. A very strong climber, comes from a strong cycling family indeed in the US. Maybe someone can tell me, I can't remember, is he a son of Wayne or Dale, or he's definitely connected to those brothers, isn't he? Radio Shack Leopard heading towards 7th. We might have expected a little bit more from them. It's not going to be any massive GC improvement for Danilo Honda, or indeed Nizzolo. It really was a bit of an ask, really, though, for them to make up the 30-odd seconds. Nonetheless, they stopped the clocks. 22:48 for them, 11th position.
22 minutes 48.02. 11th quickest.
Radio Shack Leopard, their work is done for the day. A solid performance without any particularly amazing about it, and that probably sums them up. And in the last couple of seasons now, we see Amiga Pharma Quickstep heading towards the intermediate split point, and this is disappointment, I think, really, for Mark Cavendish. Just good enough for 18th place and plus 24 seconds. Now Nathan has a few bike lengths behind as they head through this technical point, and this is a problem for Garmin because they've lost a few riders. They've got to make decisions. There's riders looking over their shoulders, and this is the moment where they have a little bit of a stall, a little bit of a think about it. I suppose if they're coming around a corner like that, they might as well stall it just for a few seconds and then go again.
Well, yeah, you would prefer not to have to stall it, and you can see Nathan Haas there. He's in difficulty getting around the corners, not cornering well at all, because if the other riders, can follow the line of the leading rider, you should be able to do it as well. But he's not comfortable there. We could see a little bit nervous on the corners.
I suppose if you're on the absolute limit physically, your ability to make the right decisions in terms of picking a line, they're compromised, aren't they?
Yes, well, if you are suffering for a number of kilometres, you're really on the limit, and you're starting to see, a little bit black, in front of you there. Well, then it's very difficult to get the corners.
Your senses are shutting down. Yeah?
Yes, your reflexes and your senses are shutting down big time, and it's at that time then you start getting nervous as well. You feel that you're not going to get around the corner. Where if you're riding strong, you're really feeling good, you're confident, and you can take the corner, get the line at the corner much better.
So what's the last sense to go, Can you hear your way around the corner? Can you hit an apex by listening? I suppose feeling is the last one to go for these guys, because they'll be feeling lots and lots of pain out there. You can be pretty sure of it. Heading towards a good time. It's not going to beat within the last 600 metres, there's no question, but that Sky Pro Cycling will be edging out Garmin Sharp. And this is a nice... Well, it's a nice little blow, nice psychological blow for Bradley Wiggins ahead of rider Hejadal, because Hejadal's victory in last year's Giro d'Italia, well, it got off to a good start, you'd have to say, with victory in the team time trial. He's not going to have that opportunity this year. They're not going to be too far behind. It's a solid effort. It's not bad indeed. 6 riders heading towards the line, but they're not going to win this time trial, and they're not going to beat Sky Pro Cycling. So Garmin Sharp stopped the clocks in 22 minutes and 30 seconds. That's just good enough for 7th place. They're 25 seconds behind the Sky Pro Cycling team at the moment. Welcome back to stage 2 of Giro d'Italia 2013. The BMC team are out on course and winding way through the finish within the last couple of 100 metres as rider from Garmin moves over to the right and makes way for the BMCs off Cadel Evans, heading towards the line. 9th place, it looks as if, well, they managed to hang on. No, 11th place for them, so a little bit of a disappointing run for Cadel Evans and crew. 22:42 is the time that they stopped the clocks with, and that is, what, about 37 seconds off the Sky Pro Cycling squad. Taylor Finney to the fore, as you might expect. And he finished second in the World Championship time trial last year, and he'll certainly have been a huge asset to that squad in today's team time trial, but not really the time that they would have liked. At the moment, Sean, it looks as if it's gone well for Sky, hasn't it?
Yes, it's looking good for Sky at the moment, and We've seen the Omega Pharma Quickstep there coming to the intermediate time check, and I think they were quite a bit off, too far off, and it will be interesting to see if they can really pull anything out of the bag here. We can see them, there's still, a lot of riders if they can put in a very fast final, but I think they would have preferred to be that bit closer at the intermediate check time. As we see the team from Orica here, they're also going to be an interesting one, how well they can finish here, because they've got some very strong riders here for this team time trial.
Some very strong riders indeed, and some of those strong riders are making Peter Weening suffer, and also making Matthew Harley-Goss suffer, although he's probably done a little bit of it himself at this point. Slots back into the line, major aerodynamic advantage in being sort of third, fourth rider in line. They say, well, it's about 20%, somewhere around about 20% less power if you're running second, and that's an interesting decision. Go to the right-hand side of that roundabout and then slot back in. That seems a little unnecessary, but nonetheless quite impressive. That was Weening, decided to go to the right, and Goss was prepared and ready for him to come back in. Oh, and Goss is feeling the pain there, isn't he? They need him. They've got 5. Will he go up? Does he have it for another turn? Orica Green Age now heading towards the line. It's going to be a very impressive time. They're not going to beat Sky at this point. Crank it down and over to the left, heading for the tunnel. It's Luke Durbridge on the front doing the big turn. No surprise there. He is, by the standards of cycle racing, a pretty big unit and able to generate very impressive power. This is downhill pretty much all the way to the line for the last couple of kilometres. Last kilometre and a half anyway. And across the line, 8th position for Orica Green Age. Perhaps a little less than they might have hoped for. 9th actually when they divide up that final second. 22:33 is their finishing time.
I think it'll be a disappointing time, 28 seconds down on the best time Sky. So you'd expect a team of Green Age to be quite a bit closer than that.
So it looks like 8 riders at least left for the Omega Pharma Quickstep, and sometimes that's the case. The more riders you bring to the line, everyone's got too easy a day, and some of the guys have got too easy a day, and at the moment it doesn't look as if Omega Pharma Quickstep are going to be able to trouble Sky Pro Cycling. The question is, will they be able to keep Mark Cavendish in that pink jersey? And at the moment, I have to say, it doesn't look too good, does it?
No, it doesn't look good. And although they have a lot of riders here, it doesn't necessarily say that they're going to put in a good performance. And the intermediate time check, wasn't looking good at all. They had lost too much time to put that back. In this short distance, you cannot lose, any more than 6, 8 seconds, 10 seconds maximum. And, that is pushing it out at 10 seconds. And they had quite a bit more than that in the intermediate checkpoint time. And I think it's going to be not a good time for them.
I wonder if we haven't had a little bit of a change in conditions, not discernible in any way at the moment, but some of the later runners not perhaps going as well as you might have expected. I wonder what the optimum number of riders in a team time trial is. I always think that if you're going training, that the optimum group is sort of 4 to 6. Any more is just gets cumbersome and difficult, and there's too much of a variance in the abilities of the riders. Anything less than that, you're sitting in the wind all day.
Yes, well, it all depends on the riders you've got. Some guys are, are real specialists in team time trial, and they can do it so well, and they look so smooth. And if you get it right, where you take your pull on the front, and then you peel off, and you just come back to the very end, and you allow just the line of riders to go through, and you just into the last wheel in the line again, and do it neatly. But it's easier said than done, because as you're coming back, when you're doing 55, 60 kilometers per hour, you want to try and get in there a little bit in the drafting, and if you do that, well, then you start upsetting the line of riders going forward. And it's all about if you're good and if you have real strong riders, well, then you can, if you've got specialists and they're on a good day, well, then they can produce the performance.
Oh, not a great day, you'd have to say, for the Omega Pharma Quickstep team, because well, they're only just inside the final kilometre, and they've already failed to beat the time of Sky Pro Cycling. Look at Mark Cavendish. Looks like he's ready for a lead out there. He's just looking left and right. and he wants to make the big contribution, there's no doubt about it. He's suitably motivated. But it is noticeable, and I think perhaps telling, that they brought so many riders to the line. Some of those riders who are capable of generating more power than others perhaps should have been, and putting those riders under pressure. Or perhaps they just didn't get organised. I mean, there are so many different ways that a team can organise themselves for a team time trial. It's a very, very technical pursuit, and it does require an immense amount of practice and training. So Omega Pharma Quick Step heading towards the line. It's going to be a disappointing afternoon for Mark Cavendish. 22 minutes and 53 seconds. It's fully 48 seconds slower than the Sky squad, and only good enough for 17th and fastest time. So disappointment for Mark Cavendish. Will he still be in pink after this stage? I'm just Sean is making the calculations, but it doesn't look good.
No, if it was on the team ranking 17 second instead of 17th place, he would stay up there. But with that time they have lost, it's, you know, a big time loss, and he's not going to stay in pink, because with the Sky time, of course, it looks like one of the riders from Sky should take the overall. So
there is confirmation of the team time trial standings of stage 2. It's Sky Pro Cycling that take the win by 9 seconds from Movistar. Astana get up for third position, 14 seconds down. Katusha, good effort from them. Vinny Fantini beat the Battle of Italy ahead of Lampre for a top 6 spot. Garmin Sharp, the 25 seconds back from Bradley Wiggins and Sky. The Blancos with Gesink in 28 seconds behind.